Greetings everyone, Ozzy Arcane from Backlogged Gaming here, and today I'm going to take a look at Injustice 2 on the PS4. So one thing I'm going to mention right away is that while I'm talking about the story in this video, I am not going to be showing any cutscenes from the story, because I want to try avoiding spoiling for anyone that I can possibly avoid spoiling the thing for. First thing I'm going to talk about is the roster in this game. I have to say I'm disappointed at some of the characters who are gone from last time, most notable being Sinestro, and while I understand story reasons for some characters not returning from the previous game due to them being, well, dead, I have to say that's pretty much a cop-out. With the multiverse and online matches being where people will most likely spend the bulk of their gameplay time, I feel that whether or not they fit in the story should be irrelevant to them making it in the game. For one, there is the fact that the Joker is still in the game, even though he only appears in the story as a hallucination, meaning that yes, the Injustice Universe incarnation of the Joker is still dead. Also, there's the fact that some characters literally have no bearing on the story, and just kind of show up in a single scene and go, "Hey, I'm here," as a justification to include them on the roster. As cool as this one scene between Green Lantern and Atrocitus was during the story mode, it was actually completely unrelated to the story as a whole when it happened. That's just an example of what I'm talking about. Also, I'm immensely disappointed that none of the previous game's DLC characters, who all as far as I'm aware are still alive, did not return as part of the main roster for this game. Many of those characters such as Lobo, Martian Manhunter, and Batgirl would have been much more interesting additions to the roster than pretty much most of the currently confirmed DLC characters we're going to get in this game. However, the gameplay and overall presentation feels like a huge improvement over the previous game. For those who didn't play Injustice 1, the combat is kind of a mix of both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. It mostly plays like MK, but rather than having a block button, you block by holding away from your opponent like in Street Fighter. One thing that still bothers me though in both Injustice and Mortal Kombat is the way they do jump attacks. There's a massive issue I have where it feels like 75% of the time when I go for a jump attack, I'll end up going straight over them for one reason or another. And this is an issue I just never have in Capcom fighters. Characters having multiple different opening dialogues they can have between each other does add a lot to keep the game from feeling a little repetitive when you fight the same opponent over and over again. And while there is still only one victory screen for each fighter, at least none of them have dialogue they speak during it like in the last game, which got very annoying, hearing the same phrase every time you won a match. Like playing as Batman and hearing him say, "Stay down," at the end of each and every single match. Or playing as Lex Luthor and hearing the exact same cell phone conversation every time you won a match. They each still only have a single victory pose, but it feels like they streamlined it so it's less annoying. The story I feel was handled much better this time around than it was in the previous game. Each character you switch between feels like you're actually learning more about what's going on, and you learn more about characters' motivations in this than you did in the previous game. In the previous game, you would often just run into someone and be like, "You're with Superman? What the fuck?" rather than really going into any detail about what's happening other than Superman's a bad guy. Overall, it feels like the story is much more fleshed out, instead of just ticking off boxes as an excuse to play through characters seemingly chosen at random before you punch Superman in the face. But now I need to talk about the fact that this game does in fact have microtransactions, and they're not attached to what most would expect them to be the most obvious thing. You'd think they would be the loot boxes, but no. It's an in-game currency called Source Crystals. You can earn some of them from leveling your player profile, but they stop dropping after you reach level 65. What are Source Crystals for? Well, you can use them to unlock the character shaders, which allow you to put different colors on characters' costumes, and from my understanding they are the only way to unlock the premier skins that are in-game. Premier skins being the skins that turn a character into an alternate character who would play far too similar to a already existing character on the roster to justify their own spot. Premier skins include Reverse Flash, Power Girl, Vixen, and a few others. If you do not buy any Source Crystals with actual money, you will at most be able to unlock 2 of the Premier skins. And the skins are not the only thing they're used for. After you get a character to the max character level of 20, you can use them to level up other characters. And wouldn't you know it, There is a trophy for getting all characters to level 20, and they know full well people are going to have characters they just plain hate to use. So they are selling you progression towards getting 100% achievements in the game. Granted, you could still grind out the levels, but I'm sure lots of people who are addicted to getting 100% in a game that want to move on to the next game will just get impatient and buy the crystals. Last thing we need to cover is the multiverse mode, which, if you're mainly playing solo like I am, is where you'll spend most of your time. This has basically replaced battle mode from the previous game. Unlike battle mode, which had a specific lineup of basically arcade ladders that had different requirements attached to them, the multiverse is advertised as having virtually an endless number of modes. I kinda question this because I have already seen a couple pop up more than once, but there is still considerably more than there was in battle mode. There are always going to be around 6 available multiverses at any given time. 5 in the regular multiverse menu, and 1 guild-specific one if you are in a guild. These change periodically. Some change every 2 hours, some change every couple of days, some only change once a month. I'm assuming the monthly one is what they'll probably use for major events, such as movie tie-ins, since that's what they just did with Wonder Woman. Modifiers in these modes can vary from something as simple as having bombs drop from the sky that can hit both you and your opponent, to having a handicap such as starting at 1% health and rapidly regenerating, but the regeneration stops the moment the enemy lands an attack on you. There are so many variations that trying to explain them all could take an entire video to itself, but I can say it is probably one of the best single-player modes, including in a fighting game, to keep you invested that I have ever seen, since usually they just have an arcade mode and then expect you to play multiplayer to stay engaged. As for multiplayer, I haven't touched it. I don't pay for PlayStation Plus, so basically the only way I'll play online matches is if this gets ported to PC. But if it does, I can tell you I'll be incredibly active in that community, unless they seriously botch the PC port. But for now, I'll be playing the PS4 version. I'll still keep playing a little bit every month, probably more so around the release of any of the DLC characters, since having purchased the Ultimate Edition, I will get all of them automatically. If anyone watching needs a guild on the PS4 version, my guild's ID tag is T8CNB. The guild is called Unleashed Paragons. We're pretty small because at the moment it's just me and a handful of guys that used to play City of Heroes. So, do I recommend this game? As a single-player game, this is a fighter with plenty of content, so it's a very good game. And if you actually have a subscription on your console to play online, even more so. I have some minor complaints about the game, but overall, I can't think of a single fighting game in recent history that I can recommend more than this one. So until next time, everybody, happy gaming.